Perfect. All right, well, thank you everybody for coming. I'm really happy with the turnout. So today we are going to go over all the details for CHC's first virtual showcase that will happen in November. And we're going to go through everything you need to know about it. This is the little agenda that we're going to follow. Please save your questions till the end, and then we'll go over everything there. If you feel like you might forget your question along the way, please feel free to just leave it in the chat or write it down somewhere, and then we will go over everything at the end. So yeah, let's get started. We're going to start off by talking about the eligibility for teams to apply.
Exactly. So only student teams composed of undergraduate and graduate students enrolled as of the initial registration deadline are permitted to compete. You could have advisors, and it's encouraged, but advisors cannot take an active role. And by active role, we mean that they cannot answer questions during technical interviews, be a lead contributor to the project, directly contribute to the submitted content, or lead administrative or logistical duties. So far, we only accept work in English, and we want you to prepare to present in English as well.
I don't know why it's not going to the next slide. Next. Okay, we'll go by clicks. All right, so dates. So obviously, we are open for applications as of right now, so September 1st. And the due date for the initial applications will be September 30th at 11:59. And then the advancing teams will be announced October 23rd. And then advancing teams, so after you get given the okay to go to the next round, you have to prepare a presentation. And so the deadline to submit that is November 20th. And then we need a week or so just to review those presentations, and the actual virtual showcase will happen on November 27th and 28th.
So now for a little bit about the actual showcase categories. First and foremost, we have the propulsion and levitation systems category. And this is essentially the system that's responsible for actuating, driving, or moving the Hyperloop. And so this mainly involves induction motors, magnets, and powertrains. So essentially the primary force of action for your Hyperloop pod. In the next section, we have electronics. So a little bit different from the actual motor. So this would essentially be the electronics that control your motor, as well as for other purposes such as communications. And this basically just includes PCBs that have been designed in-house. So not electronics that have been purchased outside, but just circuits that have been purchased in-house. Next, we have the Aeroshell. This is just the external casing, pretty straightforward. This can also include the antenna that's mounted to the Aeroshell. And in some cases, if your Aeroshell and frame are like monolithic, as in they're conjoined, your frame would also be part of your Aeroshell. But I don't think that's a concern for most of the teams, since the Aeroshell and frame are separate. And then we have the mechanical and structures category, and this is essentially any physical systems on the pod that don't qualify for the previously mentioned categories. So you can see the battery pack is one example. So the actual circuit board for the battery pack would be one category in the electronics, but the actual pack that's containing the cells would be part of mechanical and structures. And then you also have the enclosures, the frames and chassis, the guidance and suspension systems, braking and cooling. And in case you have any other interesting projects you'd like to talk about, we have the other category. So say you're developing your own Hyperloop track, or if you have some interesting software or controls projects. We didn't really include software or controls within the categories previously mentioned, mainly because it's somewhat difficult to demonstrate that in an online presentation. However, if you have an excellent project in software controls, we welcome you to apply with that. We'd also be interested if any teams have developed their own testing systems for Hyperloop pods and subsystems. So if you have software in the loop or hardware in the loop systems, that might be interesting for us to look into as well. And in case you have any unique transportation mechanisms, so say you've developed your own way of transporting your Hyperloop pod around, that would be interesting, especially for us as we organize this competition. We'll have to transport the pods around in one way or another. So we'd definitely like to see what teams have been coming up with. And just a little bit about the judging criteria. Go ahead.
I think that's a little bit after this section.
Oh, yeah, sure. So essentially, again, back to the dates, teams have to submit their project description form by September 30th. The form will be shared to you later. And essentially, you'll be talking about what type of project you'll be working on. That's in the next slide. So basically, you'll be explaining what your team is presenting, what the technical specifications are. So say you're designing a motor controller, you'll specify how many phases, what the power consumption of that motor is, what type of, what the duty cycle is, the frequency of the PWM, just a list of specifications of the system so we can understand what you're developing. Then sort of just explain why it's interesting to the Hyperloop community. Depending on how many applications we receive for the project, we may not be able to showcase all of them. So we definitely want to focus on the projects that are interesting and unique to the Hyperloop community. And we'd also like to see at what stage you're at. So if you're in design, manufacturing, assembly, testing, redesigning, or fully completed your project, we're definitely interested to see where you're at. We do prefer projects that are later in the design cycle, just so we have something more concrete for people to view in their presentations. And the next two factors are just explaining what you've done. So we definitely want people to promote work that they've done themselves. So if you're purchasing components it's okay. If you're purchasing components from outside vendors, we definitely want to know like which parts of the system have been purchased externally. And if you're developing, say, like a software or control algorithms, we'd also like to see like the libraries or reference tools that you're using to design that software or controls. And if there's any unique factors, say COVID changed your design process, or your team had a change in structure, we'd definitely like to see any unique factors that influence the way your design was sort of structured. And I guess I'll briefly talk about like how we're grading this. We'll basically be seeing as to like which teams have a complete list of like what they've done, how interesting it is to the Hyperloop community, and like the progress they've made. We'll be grading these anonymously. So in your applications, in the actual write-up for the project description, don't mention your team or yourself, because they'll be like your team name will be separated from your project description, and then the technical team and myself will be reviewing it to see like the content, and it'll be anonymous, so you can be assured that it won't be biased towards any particular Hyperloop team. And this is the project description form that we've been referring to. So you'll fill out your team information, the project descriptions, which is the 5 categories, and we've included we also have the appendix. So essentially, the project descriptions will only be 1 page. And if you want to include images, say, of your design, including schematics, layouts, test results, CAD files, would be interested to see those as well, just to sort of support your application. So that would all go in the appendix, and the appendix is a maximum of 20 pages. I don't expect anyone to exceed that limit, but if you do have lots of images to upload, we'd be interested in seeing it. Just to note that the important information should be in the project descriptions, and that the appendix is just supplementary for us to view.
Yeah.
And so once they've been submitted, we'll take about 23 days to review all of the project descriptions. Based on which ones meet the criteria, we'll be inviting them to create their presentations. And we'll be providing more information about the format of the presentations and the structure around that timeline. And then you'll have until November 20th to actually submit your presentations. But we do encourage you to submit them earlier, just so we can review them and ensure that they follow the format and structure that we've specified. And again, that'll come closer to October 23rd to the teams that are selected.
All right, any questions from anybody? Was there anything put in the chat? I don't think I can see while I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, Juan asked us about the role of graduated students and professional engineers. I guess Shahir could answer that.
Yeah. So I think there's a slide on this. I can refer back to that at the beginning. Eligibility. Yeah. Yeah. So the basically graduate students are completely fine because we still consider them students. However, students that are not currently enrolled in any post-secondary program, those would be considered advisors. So essentially that means they can't be a lead contributor to any project. So that essentially means they can't really be designing, say like your frame. They can't be like creating the CAD files, and they can't say be like welding it themselves or manufacturing it. They can, however, provide like advice as any advisor would, just advice about like how does this actually design or like key points or various things that any advisor would do. So essentially, like the actual engineering and communication between the competition and the teams should be done by students in undergraduate or graduate programs, and advisors are encouraged to attend, but they're simply providing assistance in the form of advice to the team. So, and that includes, say, like leading the administrative or logistical duties, or answering questions. If we ask the team questions, they can't be answering on behalf of the team unless we specifically address a question to the advisor. And they also can't be like modifying or writing any documents that are submitted, and that includes the project description form. And again, that's just following the SpaceX rules that were set up beforehand.
Was there another question in the chat?
Yeah, I think Matthew asked which platform media the showcase will happen. So we will decide that based upon the number of applications we receive, but the format, broadly speaking, that we are considering is that it will be a Zoom meeting that will be broadcasted on YouTube so that we could have a wider audience watching the showcases. And were there any other questions? Because I remember someone raised their hand.
Yeah, with me. Just maybe more details about the event itself. Do you know like what it's gonna be? Like people asking questions, or just us presenting our project, or what is it gonna be? Do you know?
So I can speak and Shahir could compliment me or Krista. Basically, we want to know what you guys would like to talk about, considering the categories that we provided, to learn about the progress in your team. So the project description form is a summary of what you've done, and the appendix supplements that. And we don't want you guys to prepare a presentation if you're going to be told, we're sorry, we had too many applications, we can't have you in. However, after you've been told that you could, you make a presentation that explains the progress you've made in the project description in detail. So you would show graphics, you would show supplementary photos, etc. After that, there will be a Q&A session for your showcases, is what we envision. Shahir, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, it's a pretty standard format, I think. I'm not sure if other universities do this, but essentially, like people are working on capstone projects, they'll present them to other people doing capstones and in the general public as well. It's a similar format where you're presenting like an engineering project, and you'll have members of both the Hyperloop community and outside if they choose to attend, and you'll be able to sort of talk about what you've been working on that's interesting, and people will be able to ask you questions about the event, about your project as well. And hopefully there will be some networking events as well, because it is a Hyperloop and engineering community focused event. But each team will have the opportunity to present and receive questions.
Yeah, I think.
Great.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to add to that. We hope to have more activities planned just as opposed to just having these presentations. Like Shahir said, networking opportunities. I know Daphne had some ideas for some discussions that we could bring to a group of people to just discuss and get to know each other. So it won't just be presentations. There will be events on the side that you can attend as well.
Thank you. Perfect.
And of course, more details to come in the future about those other events and actually how the event will run itself. Is there any other questions from anybody? All right, well, future events coming up. So now that we've kind of given you guys this information about the showcase, it was a lot of information at once, probably a lot to process. I'm sure you guys will have more questions within the next couple weeks. So we are going to have another event on September 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to specifically ask questions about the virtual showcase. So this is in 2 weeks' time. It'll be enough time maybe for you to get your bearings, decide what categories you want your team to apply for, and sort of get started in a little bit of a write-up, and then you can come to the Q&A event, ask your questions, and hopefully that will kind of set you up to make a really good application. If you would like to, you can follow CA Hyperloop on Instagram for some more information updates about this specific event. And I know in the past for our events we've had a sign up, but for this event there will be no sign up. You can just join through the meeting link, which will be posted in the next couple weeks. Next, we're trying to have these monthly events every month. So this was our monthly event for September. Our monthly event in October will take place on October 6th, and it will happen again 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and more information again to come about this soon. And also, next event, lots of exciting things happening. If you are in the Hyper Co-op channel, you would have seen a member of One Loop, I believe his name was Jaden, post about a Hyper Hangout session that is going to be happening every Sunday at 1 p.m. EST. So here is the Google Meets link here. He also did post it in the Hyper Co-op channel. If you are not in the Hyper Co-op channel, you can drop your email in the chat right now, and I can add you to it or invite you to it. And also, after this event is done, I will be posting the doc for the application for our virtual showcase there as well. I will also be posting this slide deck for and if you have any questions that can be answered through this. And this recording of the event will also be posted on YouTube, and I will also put it in the Hyper Co-op channel. So yeah, does anybody have any questions after that? No? All right, very cool. So yes, please follow us on social media. We will make sure to update you on all of the goings on of CHC there. And yeah, thank you so much everybody for coming. If you have questions, please stick around. We are very willing to answer any questions you may have. If not, you can contact us at chc@hyperloop.ca if you have any questions about this that can be answered through email. If not, we look forward to seeing you at our September 15th event. So
I would like to correct something. Our
Oh,
email address is chc@cahyperloop.ca.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I will make
No
sure to
worries.
post that on the Hyper Co-op channel as well for you guys to email us.